Good evening and welcome to Ancestor House. My name is Dami Akanusi and tonight I'm your host. I'm a filmmaker, broadcast journalist at Darkling Productions, and I'm very excited to be here with you, coming into your wonderful living rooms because tonight's show is all about hip-hop. And you know, we all love hip-hop. No matter what accent you have around the world, what language you speak, there seems to be this universal language of hip-hop. And I absolutely love that. And today in the studio, we have four phenomenal guys. Yes, that's right. It's a man show this week. And this is beautiful because it's all about Brooklyn. It's all about New York. But just, if we talk about hip hop, it's all about the world. That's right. So tonight's show, it's all about the Universal Hip Hop Parade. Now, this is an annual family-friendly cultural event. And when we say cultural, we're looking at cultural and including spiritual, we're including political, we're including social, and we're including economics. And now when I say that, we're saying that in reference to Marcus Garvey. Now, Marcus Garvey, hip hop, you say? Well, yes, ask that question. What's it all about? Well, tonight we shall find out, because this is Ancestor House, and I'd like you to come on in, take a seat, join us. You're very welcome.
We must learn and tell our story, heal the pain and raise the glory. We must learn and tell our story, heal the pain and raise the glory. Tell it. Not to know the family story is bad. Surveillance. Not to want to know it is worse. For to pass on ignorance to someone is like, it's like passing on a curse. And it will curse your father, curse your mother, curse your sister, curse your brother. And every time you come close to one another, it will be there in between to separate.
229th Street home of 18-year-old Ramarley Graham captured the final moments of his life.
Welcome to Ancestor House.
It all begins about.
Can you also hear what I can hear?
As police chased Graham into his home, police say they.
Yeah.
I'm Dami Akanusi, and oh, it's not just voices in my head, it's now stopped. It's fine. This is Ancestor House, and I'd like to welcome you once again into our beautiful setting. Tonight, I have four wonderful guests, and they have come up from Brooklyn to tell us a little bit about what they have going on in the sense of the Universal Hip Hop Parade. Now, let's get straight into it. Welcome, my good brothers, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Ancestor House. Thank you so much for coming. Now, let's start off with you guys introducing yourselves. Please tell us a bit about who you are.
Well, my name is Jeffrey Kazembe Batts, and I'm the founder of the Universal Hip Hop Parade for Social Justice.
The Universal Hip Hop Parade for Social Justice. I love that.
My name is Zachariah Mitchell, and I'm the coordinator for the Universal Hip Hop Parade.
Wonderful.
My name is Perion. I'm also a coordinator for Universal Hip Hop Parade.
My name is Gershwin, and I'm Brooklyn coordinator for the Hip Hop Parade.
Wonderful. So one of the things you guys all have in common is that you're all, you know, part of this hip hop parade, the Universal Hip Hop Parade. Now tell me, so you're the founder,
Yes,
Kazembe. Tell me a little bit about, you know, why did you set up the Universal Hip Hop Parade, and what is it really about?
Well, going back to the year 2000, and for this honor of being on this show, I wore my shirt today.
I like
which
it.
is
I like it.
the original shirt we had in the year 2000 when the parade started. So we've been doing it for a minute. The concept was basically in the year 2000, hip-hop culture was sort of at its peak as far as its popularity, record sales, and so forth. And also we're activists. And so we want social change. And so we thought about how could we reach more young adults and try to get them not only to be activists, but to really respect the legacy of Marcus Garvey, who is someone who we think is one of the greatest organizers of all types of people, but especially black people. And so what we said was Garvey had parades. he had parades up in Harlem in the 20s. We didn't want to have just a straight up Marcus Garvey parade because, you know, most of the Garveyites are older, and we wanted to appeal to a younger generation and pull them in. What better tool to use than hip hop culture? So that's how we came up with the concept of having not just a universal parade, universal meaning Universal Negro Improvement Association, the name of Garvey's organization, and also meaning worldwide, but to have a universal hip-hop parade. So we would get all of the elements, not just rap music, but all of the elements rolled in. And part of the impetus for that was in the year 2000, Eminem was the most prominent rapper on the scene at that time. We didn't want young adults to not appreciate that rap music came out of the black experience primarily. There's been all types of influence, but it's predominantly black. Sort of like jazz and rock and roll. A lot of folks started to forget that jazz and rock and roll with Little Richard and others from rock and roll and jazz artists came out of our experience. So although the parade is, everyone is welcome, it's definitely built on black pride and black culture. And so that's how we came in the year 2000 to start to put together both Marcus Garvey and his philosophies and opinions and hip-hop culture with the 5 original elements that Zulu Nation and others gave us.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And it's interesting that you say when you mention year 2000 and the rise of Eminem, because back in the UK, I was working at the BBC at the time, and it was the first time that the BBC did a documentary about hip hop. It was called The Hip Hop Generation.
Yes.
And, you know, it was, you know, Eminem had just, you know, come to power, and that's when suddenly all light was shone in terms of like media, mainstream attention on like, oh, you know, there's this thing called hip hop, and it's reaching, you know, suburban kids and everything. And
Yes.
so therefore, it's something that we can take note of. And so, like, and especially, I mean, you guys, brothers, you look, you know, young. You're like you're of the hip hop generation. You know, how have you incorporated like hip hop into your life, and how does it relate to what we're talking about here, like, you know, Marcus Garvey?
Well, hip hop, I incorporated hip hop into my life by turning a negative into a positive, and that's the main thing, you know. That's what hip hop stood for. That's what hip hop stands for.
And so you had something negative happening in your life that you felt that you utilized hip hop to galvanize you to make changes?
Right. Yeah, well, as far as just growing up in a community I grew up in without a father and whatnot, and I just thought that I can't be a statistic, you know. I won't become a statistic.
Awesome, awesome. And what about you, brother?
I'm gonna just say, like, hip hop is my community, and it is because, you know, back when the 90s, like when rap was first taking its form, well, first it was MCing, but rap started forming based on the things that was being talked about, you know, NWA from Compton, and then, you know, it's like this new form of rap that was coming out, which made rappers reporters who was telling the things that weren't being told about in the ghetto. So it's like now today, we don't have those reporters like the way they used to be. But the symbol of hip hop is still around, because the very same thing that they talked about, I'm still seeing it. You know, whether it's police to, you know, the parties to, you know, the unfair things that's talked about, the drugs, the sex, the guns. So it's all there in my community, whether the news is there or not. So I think that is hip hop, along with, you know, the things that they said also.
Absolutely. And, you know, just to, and as we go to your Perry?
Gershwin.
Gershwin, okay, I'm going to get it right by the end.
Yeah.
Gershwin, you know, just when you said about reporting, you know, and the hip hop being, you know, that voice, the same with Marcus Garvey, in that he was a journalist, you know, he was a publisher, a writer, and really projected a message for all black people. How is hip hop today for you, you know, presenting that voice? Is it presenting that voice, or do you think it's changed in any way?
Well, I like educated hip hop. I like that, you know, to get the message, and hip hop has that expression. As far as hip hop helping Marcus, you know, helping the message get out like Marcus Garvey, it's more to the point where we have to recognize and start investing in ourselves to realize that we ourselves are important. There's a few artists that may reach on that every once in a while. You know, just to give a few names, I'll say Pat Poose and Jay-Z and Nas, a few artists that I listen out to, and they, you know, you could take a time out to listen to some hip hop songs, and you know, you start to wonder, you know, what are we doing as a culture of people to really help ourselves, you know, to preserve and be more safe in the future.
That's awesome. Awesome. Now, you know, when we talk about like hip hop, I also feel, you know, we talk about community, we talk about neighborhood. So the Universal Hip Hop Parade is, you know, it's you know, it was born out of Bed-Stuy, Bedford Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. And I just have to say, shout out to, you know, to the Stuy, because that's where I live. And,
right.
you know, Brixton to Bed-Stuy, I mean, you know, it's just awesome. And, you know, there's such a legacy anyway of hip hop, and there's such a connection with hip hop, and you know, whether we're talking about the sounds and the beats of Africa, or whether we're talking about the Caribbean, we're like looking at Biggie, we're looking at Kool Herc, all these people who were connected. And so then, you know, we look at Marcus Garvey and where he was from. I just somehow feel like when I think about Brooklyn, I always feel like this Caribbean essence to it as well. And you know, so you know, somehow like, is that part of why you connected, you know, this Universal Hip Hop Parade with Marcus Garvey, or you know, and what was the essence behind that?
Well, I would say, as far as we know, Bed-Stuy is the only neighborhood in the United States of America that has a street named after Marcus Garvey, Marcus Garvey Boulevard, and that's the route that we go down. And so we take a lot of pride in that. Bed-Stuy, you know, Big Daddy Kane, you know, of course, Jay-Z today, Biggie yesterday. Some of the greatest rappers of all time came out of, you know, Little Kim came out. Now, hip-hop culture is bigger than rap music. And so people like King Uprock, who helped to create the concept of uprocking, which is a form of like breakdancing. And some of our members here, Brother Perrion, you know, he was doing this thing up at the Apollo the other day. So we try to take in the entire culture, not just rap music, but that definitely is the most prominent part. But tying it with Garvey was just, we forced the two together. Again, we were activists. I was an activist. These brothers weren't there at the very beginning, and I'm so pleased that they're here today and that they've taken on the concept, and they'll take it to the next level and beyond. But as an activist, I really wanted to do something to pull in young adults. And hip-hop and Garvey. A lot of people don't know about Garvey. They know the name. They know that he came from Jamaica, but they don't know what he did in the United States and what he did worldwide, the influence he had on the African National Congress in South Africa. That's why the flag looks kind of similar, and so many other things. So tying the two together was just a way of trying to make it that young adults could have some fun, but also at the same time get the seriousness of the work that needs to be done for a better community.
Absolutely. And to me, it makes complete sense, because when we look at, you know, hip hop, and then we look at Marcus Garvey, in the sense it's like that, you know, just there's that element of social justice running through, but also, you know, Marcus Garvey utilizing the culture, the popular culture, to, you know, to spread the message, you know, and
That's
that
right.
whole Back to Africa concept wasn't just about, like, you know, Africans connecting with Africa, or Africans in the diaspora, however we describe ourselves, as Caribbean or Black British or whatever category you want to tick. It's like, you know, and saying, like, you have a home back there, but it's also, how do we economically get there? How do we, you know, create, like with the Starliner, you know, how do we create like some type of wealth within ourselves? And, you know, I look at hip hop and I'm like, okay, that's that community building also,
Yes.
right, at its core.
And you know, the culture, like with the similarities between hip hop and Garvey are, one, Garvey was a playwright, he was a poet. So within, he was a creative force. A lot of people just look at him politically, but he was a cultural force also, part of the Harlem Renaissance and leading up to that. Hip hop is so entrepreneurial. It's such a creative force, but it's also entrepreneurial. Now, as you mentioned, the Black Star Line, Garvey had a vision for African people doing business globally in the Caribbean, on the continent, in the Americas. And so hip hop culture now, because of the internet, because of the ease of travel, is global. Jay-Z from Bed-Stuy, he has businesses. He goes to France. He goes to Africa sometimes. I saw some rappers in South Africa and in Nigeria recently. So what we see is the connection between both of these forces. Garvey and his organization, not just Garvey the man, but his organization and his philosophies and opinions, was encouraging entrepreneurship and was also utilizing culture to empower people. And that, like one of my comrades earlier was saying about the positive educational aspect of rap music, and that's what we want to highlight. I mean, at times there's some negativity, but for all the negativity in the culture, there's a lot of positivity. You just have to search for it underground.
I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think like coming up as the new generation, like if you compare now to like the 90s to the 80s when it first started, the beginning of it, how they used to have the jams up in Soundview and in the Bronx, that was like the pure positivity. And then when you had the next generation that came out, those were the kids who were, you know, witnessing their parents on drugs and, you know, coming up in slums that was worse than the way they look today. And then these new reporters, or the new generation of hip hop, had something new to bring, which was the violence, and you know that's what they was accustomed to. So it went from net positive as the times started getting worse. The generation that came up with hip hop growing, they was only speaking from what they saw. And now today, even though it's hip hop, it's changed sometimes for the good, sometimes for the worse. They have to tell both sides, to, you know, the negative and the positive, and it's bad that sometimes the negative outshines the positive, but I think that's what all makes hip hop, like just telling your story to relate to everybody else. And again, that's what, you know, Marcus Garvey did, that's what so many other people did when they told, you know, not just the positive, they had to tell the negatives also, because that's the only way you'll learn is by getting the negative and the positive.
Oh, you know, and I love, you know, especially you guys are young as well, you know, and when I say young, I'm, you know, not saying it in a way, but, you know, young and aspirational, you have, you know, so much to offer and give the world, and that's so positive because it's all about, you know, the legacy and understanding, you know, our roots and how do we utilize that to move forward. And you know, when you mentioned, when we were talking about hip hop as well, and the elements that represent hip hop, you know, it's not just, you know, rap, and a lot of people just associate it, you know, well, I guess in the mainstream when they're talking about it, like, oh, you know, it's just rap. But, you know, there's so many, you know, other elements to it. And when you talked about the Apollo, in fact, one of the pieces that I'm going to show you, I do a Darkling Dammy About Town. I actually was up at the Apollo for Breaking Convention. And that, in fact, what was really interesting is that Breaking Convention has been happening for 10 years in the UK. It's the first year this year that they came to Harlem. And it's amazing because, you know, again, it just shows like this universal element. And the founder of Breaking Convention, John Z.D., he actually is the art director at a place called Sadler's Wells in London, you know, really renowned theatre. And he's the first, you know, like, well, he's a contemporary dancer, hip hop head, a breaker, everything. And to utilize that space and bring, I'd say, you know, bring hip hop into the mainstream in that sense was just phenomenal. And then for him to bring it to New York, you know, to the birth of where, you know, where hip hop was born, was even just, you know, mind blowing. So this is the 10th anniversary, and I'd like to show you that clip at Darkling Dammy About Town at the Apollo Theatre Breaking Convention, and then we can discuss it afterwards. Mm-hmm. So let's see that, please.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I love that, but I'll tell you something. Hip hop has got a global vibe going on, you know what I mean? Because we all recognize the roots of this thing, you know what I mean? It started in the Bronx. So as far as I'm concerned, could the Bronx make some noise? BX! Hip hop culture is now the dominant form around the world, yeah? You could go to Uganda, you see kids who are dancing with hip-hop. You can go to Australia, Russia. Every single city in this metropolis around the world has been influenced by you guys. Yeah? Make some noise for that. We've been doing this breaking convention for 10 years now. Breaking Convention, an international festival of hip-hop dance theatre. We are breaking convention by bringing hip-hop into spaces like this and justifying this. We are breaking convention. You understand? You understand? You understand this one here?
The Apollo has had so many different performers. It's from its early days. It was the place of black entertainment. And in terms of hip-hop artists have always performed at the Apollo from the early 80s. So you've had Run DMC, Dougie Fresh, Houdini, so many different wonderful hip-hop artists have performed here at the Apollo. And I welcome everybody to come down to 125th Street. We have dancers outside, we have DJs outside, we have DJs and dancers in the lobby. We also have films and videos, family workshops. There's a ton of stuff going on.
Well, I'm here, I'm performing with Dynamic Rockers, and we're all going to perform. You can check it out at the Apollo.
Why hip-hop, why breaking? Because this is a lifestyle. This is the way that I like living. I have fun, I make a living, and I release stress. So basically, it's all that you need.
I just want to get across to Ross Stanley right now. Oh, that. Oh, shout out Cool Herc. I want to shout out Africa Balboa. Yeah. Because these are leaders, you know what I mean?
So that was Breaking Convention in the 10th year, and John ZD, who brought that to New York, he actually came up with, like, you know, hip-hop dance theater. Any of you guys into breaking, b-boying?
Yeah.
Perry?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm into breakdancing.
Awesome. Is that an event that you would have gone to? Or
yeah, I went. I was
in?
there. I got a chance to dance on stage with Dynamic Rockers, with Kid Glide from Brooklyn. It was a couple. I got to see like two little kids. They was battling with each other. It was fun. Like, I think that's hip hop, especially the dancing part, and sometimes the MCing part. That's the only part where, most specifically the dancing, where you could get physical, but like the crowd is there to make sure like it stays dancing. And especially breakdancing, like it's aggressiveness, it's, you know, your own style, your own creativity, it's your flow. So you get away with a lot of things. and just seeing like everybody there having a good time and dancing and doing all the creative different moves and the different things that it takes time to learn, but in the end we all benefit from it because we all in the circle having a good time, we dancing, and we representing what it started from. Nothing, you know, a bunch of kids dancing or rapping or whatever it is.
Absolutely, and you know, when you mention where it all started from, I always think back to, you know, like you know, literally like out of the oppression, and again, it's like that voice, just that voice of like, you know, we're not going to stand for this. We need change or whatever, and this is how we're going to express it. And we've come up with this, you know, creative, all these different creative forces to make that happen. And also, you know, thinking about Marcus Garvey,
yes.
it's you know, again, you know, his like motivation came out of the oppression, so it brings back that connection. But why then? You were just about to say something.
I wanted to say a couple of things. One, big shout out to Dynasty Rockers, because they've always shown us love. I recognize one of the faces on the screen, and King Uprock, who's a part of our board. He's one of the founders of the Dynasty Rockers, so big shout out to them.
Awesome.
I also have to say with Breakers, because I couldn't go around him and some of the other founders of the culture without acknowledging that the term breaking, they use the term B-boys and B-girls. That's what they called dances when the culture first started, like in the mid-70s. And breaking, break dancing came out of that, and breaking is from that. So they never really liked that term. So, but it's become accepted in the common lexicon now, or lingo. The other thing was just about where hip hop started. Now, I was with Bambaataa the other day, and so Cool Herc, Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, they all lived in the Bronx, and there's no doubt about that. But I always like to say, because I'm from Brooklyn, there was nothing happening in the Bronx that wasn't happening in Brooklyn around the same time, because the subway existed. And you know, there's Pete Jones, who was a DJ. There's a lot of names that can be called. And so just from Brooklyn Pride, I like to say hip hop started in New York City, not necessarily in the Bronx, although some might dispute that.
Yeah, you know, Cool Herc did come from Jamaica, and he did come to the Bronx with his big tall tower speakers, and they used to use the street lights. And I mean, I don't know, because everybody, I remember that song KRS-One, when it was that battle with Queens and the Bronx, and it was talking about how they started in the bridge. So it's like, I guess everybody got from their own, you know, point of view. You can't knock it. It started in New York, so.
Because you know, like I never really went. The Bronx was like a foreign country to me. When I was growing up, I remember my mom took me to the Bronx Zoo, and it seemed like we was on the train for so long. I thought we were going down south or something. And so my world was Brooklyn, and I'm telling you. I remember on Halsey, Hancock, and Tompkins, Divine Sounds used to come and set up speakers that were like 3 times as tall as I was. Wow. Maybe it's because I was a little kid at the time. They seemed so big. But Grandmaster Theodore, Grand Wizard Theodore, just so many different artists. And again, I say that whatever was happening in the Bronx, and I don't deny that those 3 legends were from the Bronx. But they had friends and relatives who were also all across the city. It was a New York City thing, I think.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. I think,
yeah,
hip hop did start in New York, but I think New York was the first to convey the message out to the world, and I think the struggle existed everywhere, whether it's in Uganda or wherever it may be throughout the world. The struggle always existed.
Yeah, we all was dealing with the same thing. Because even the time, like going back to the rapping music, our hip hop, like from the East Coast, wasn't talking about, you know, the things that they was talking about on the West Coast when they came out. It was like we was talking about, you know, no, they was talking about girls and cars and fancy jewelry and stuff. And over here we talking about, you know, just showing conditions of how we live in. But they came out a little bit more hardcore than us, and then we stepped it up, and then the time they stepped it up. So it was like always a back and forth thing, but it always, you know, eventually you got people coming from the Caribbean who was getting into it, and, you know, Puerto Rico, people getting into it, and then all these other countries, people was getting into it, all starting from something that related to New York City, where it came from here, and then they just spread it out it already was there, but we got the message out, and now we got everybody throwing they sharing it.
There's certainly something very special about, you know, New York City, and you know, one of the reasons why I gravitated towards coming here as well. It's just like, it's so rich with that, and it's almost like, you know, what is it that creates this fire that becomes these stars, you know, whether we're talking about the Jay-Z's or the B's or the, you know, whoever it might be. And you know, and then, you know, this kind of energy, it's like an energetic force that is continuous, and so it's so kind of so impressive and incredible that it's managed to infiltrate every element of culture. That's you know, and this show is really about, you know, a different perspective on how we participate in culture, coming from, you know, people of color. Yes. But you know, we're all participating in the same culture, and so you look at the commercials on TV, it's hip hop. You look at you know, even in the UK, I mean, we'll call it urban, but you know, like you were saying, is like when we talk about hip hop, you talk about black music. You know, if we're going to talk about urban, then we have to include jazz, we have to include rock and roll, we have to include all these things. But suddenly it's like, oh, we'll call it urban, and so therefore we don't have to, you know, maybe give it the due props. And I don't know why that is, but at the same time, on the flip side, we're looking at the culture today, and you know, for example, everyone is like, you know, just off on it with the Trayvon Martin, justly so. But then, you know, again, hip hop gets thrown into the conversation, or rap becomes part of the conversation, the hoodie, you know, and everything, and suddenly it's like the negativity is attributed to that. Why? What's going on there? Why is there always this? You know, why is it so always like something that, you know, we're going to jump on regardless? You know, regardless of who.
That's tough, you know. Every time, you know, as a people, when we have something going good, there's always going to be, you know, those people of culture to try to take our good thing away. You know, I mean, hip hop is so big that they tend to use it against us at the same time. You know, we have to like take back control of what we had and what we have, and market it and use it our own way, because we have to find a way not to put it out there to where it could be used against us.
And how do we take it back then? Because that's a really good point that you made there.
Mm-hmm.
I think first I wanted to say that I was gonna go to what he said first. That hip hop came from poor to now it's becoming like this major industry, billion-dollar industry, and I think people know like who's behind everything. That, you know, you got the street people like us, like who we do the street stuff. Then you got the people who come from the street who do their part. Then you got the, you know, managers and this and them. But you know who's all the way at the top is people with the money, the big boys with the money. So I think that's what he means by we need to take it and make it ours, instead of, you know, letting everybody take something that we did coming from nothing, occupy our time, instead of shooting and killing each other. We use that as a scapegoat, and they basically took that and used it as a way to get money, to make money off of us. I also wanted to say that I think people, especially the media, they was never able to separate rap. No, they always focused on rap instead of reality, and the rap tells reality, but they only see rap, but they don't see what the rap is about. No matter who it is, Chief Keef, everything that they talk about, no matter how ignorant it is, at times, it's reality. You can't tell me to rap about flowers if I'm not around flowers. I'm around drive-bys and you know, people shooting and drugs, and even though it seems like I'm glorifying it because the way that I'm, you know, saying it, but the reality, the problem always was with media is they always focused on rap and not reality. When a problem comes up, they'll throw the rap music up because the hoodies and, you know, the jeans and the guns and, you know, but that's reality. That's what, you don't need the TV to see that that's reality. You just take a walk to Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and you'll see the very same thing that's on the TV is the very same thing that we live through every day. The people may move out the neighborhood and may go, you know, to mansions and all that, but somewhere in a neighborhood, whether it's Harlem, Bed-Stuy, Chicago, Baltimore, wherever, California, the very same thing that they blame for the reasons why young black men and Hispanic men die is reality. And we're not even gonna go into how the problem got there, who started the problem, can they change the problem? Millions of dollars going to other things that I feel personally could be put towards something else. So I think it's bigger than just, you know, hip hop. It's this, no, focus on rap, focus on reality and not the rap music.
Yeah, and I think that hip hop is not responsible for violence in America. I think America is responsible for violence in America. Because if you ask the residents that live in Connecticut, Newtown, Connecticut, they will say, yeah, look at the NRA. So, and he tried to use hip hop as a scapegoat. I don't see the parallel between a hoodie and hip hop. You know, I just see the fact that he was black, you know, and that came with that. I guess they try to use hip hop, you know, to blame that.
And you know,
good point.
No, I was just going to say, hip hop is not every white supremacy. The global reality of white supremacy on this planet Earth, as we speak, affects everything, including hip hop. Now, I admire the Jay-Z's, the Queen Latifahs, the Diddy's, who are able to build businesses and enterprises, even if they may have a relationship with the man, or there may be some white force behind it, because just about everything is, you know, even, you know, because of just the way the world is. But what I do admire about hip hop is the fact that at times they do speak Public Enemy back and KRS-One back in the day. Even someone like a Kanye or Jay today, if you look closely, or Nas, at some of what they're saying in their lyrics, that they are challenging the status quo. And that's what we try to celebrate, both in their lyrics, but also in providing jobs. I mean, a lot of people eat off of hip hop, not just the people who might work for Bad Boy or Rockefeller, but brothers who hustle their tapes at Fulton Street Mall or in Times Square, who are still making their own CDs and are making their own creativity, fashion. Because, you know, hip hop is not just rap. Last year, Gershwin was there. We honored a whole lot of graffiti artists. You know, that's you know, as far as marketing and how they're utilized in commercials, the skills and art galleries all over the world. That's another one of the original elements. So, and that hasn't made as much money. It's not as much money in it as, say, getting a record deal, or at least it used to be with a record deal. But we have to celebrate and encourage our people and all people, because we definitely come from a black perspective, but Garvey influenced the Irish and the Vietnamese, because Ireland was going through the Great Famine then. Some people say Ho Chi Minh actually heard Garvey when he was in the United States. And so both Garvey and both hip-hop have global influence. And we have to nurture that, because the world is not what it ought to be. It's not what it can be. And that if you have hope, the whole social justice in our name is just that. We want social justice and we want a better world. And we're just using these two tools, and the event that we have on August 16th, our conference, and the actual parade on August 17th, as just two tools to try to encourage that, you know, as we live our lives.
Absolutely. And just so people know, on the 16th and the 17th, 17th is actually Marcus Garvey's birthday, right?
Yes.
Right.
So the actual Universal Hip Hop Parade is actually on the 17th, but on the day before you have a conference about Marcus Garvey. So just so people know, just to let them know where that is and how they can.
On Friday, August 16th, at Mount Pisgah Baptist Church, which is on Tompkins Avenue near the intersection of DeKalb, in Bed-Stuy, we're going to have a conference from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We're going to have guest speakers where we talk about spirituality, politics, economics, and culture. We have this thing that we call a SPEC. That's the acronym for those 4 words. And we'll have a panel discussion with people talking about, from a black perspective, spirituality into the 21st century, politics, you know, it's a big election in this city this year, economics / entrepreneurship, and culture. And we have great speakers, business owners, bankers, church leaders, members of Zulu Nation, creative artists who will speak in the different subcategories that I mentioned. That's going to take place, and then we're going to have some local talent, maybe even some of the brothers that are sitting up here who got skills.
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
And that's going down on a Friday the 16th.
That's
This
Friday.
is something we've added on to we usually just have a one-day celebration, the actual parade, and maybe a pre-concert like we had last year or an after party. But this year we decided to have a full-fledged conference where the conference is more about the development of black folks into the 21st century.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. You were just about to say something before.
Oh no, I was going to say that that's true because he said that Marcus Garvey inspired the Irish and all types of other people from different backgrounds. I was going to say black people not the only black people aren't the only people suffering either. Like you got Mexicans suffering. If you go to a Mexican community, they going through the same things we're going through. You got white people going through the same things we're going through. You got Puerto Ricans. You got Indians. You got whoever you are. You got people going through the same thing we're going through. So I don't understand why they always got the camera on us. Maybe it's because we have a history that's always shown us going through negative, and now I guess they trying to show how I don't know what they're doing. But I just want to say that the camera shouldn't always be shown on us as if we the bad people, because everybody else go through the same things we go through. It's probably not put out there the way ours is. Every time in America, a magazine I look at, they always compare the statistics of black people in jail, statistics of black people unemployed to the rest of the country, the statistics of successful black men to the rest of the country, the statistics of single black women to the rest of the country. And it's like, but we not the only ones going through this. You got the other people of different races who are in prison. We probably fill up most of the time, but you got
there's
people.
a reason why.
Yeah, the system's built against us.
Absolutely.
It's built against us, and that gives us a reason. They make money off of us. They close our schools. They take over our communities. They abandon us. Our parents abandon us. Then the system abandons us. We roam the street. Then they put droves and droves of police out there as if we in Iraq or something. And then they give every reason to lock us up.
You know what? That's a good point because, like what Pac said, they got a war on drugs, so the police can bother you.
Instead of war on poverty.
Right. And one thing about hip hop is Russell Simmons. He was a voice for, what was it? The Rockefeller drug law that was started in 1973 that gave these blacks for little low possession of drugs long prison sentences, and he was an advocate against that. So that's big on the hip hop sense, on the hip hop scale, I
was going to say something when you was talking. We came from a slavery. They're using hip hop and a whole bunch of other things to keep us enslaved mentally, physically, financially, and that's one of the issues that they promote on TV. They don't promote the ways that we could uplift ourselves, which were how hip-hop started. What they promote now, since they control the cameras and networks, is that how bad it is, and they put on TV how ridiculous it could be.
That's true, because I'll say hip-hop is supposed to be that path to release yourself. Poetry, that's supposed to be where you let go of whatever was wrong with you. And I think today they have it shown that hip-hop is, you have to sound like this person to be considered, an artist. You have to rap like this. If you talk about this stuff, we'll slide. We'll go to the boy over here glorifying the very same thing that he's angry about. They know black men are angry about the conditions, the way they live in, everything that they're going through, the schools, the jails, police, Trayvon Martin. I was at that Trayvon Martin rally in Harlem. And this was at 11 o'clock at night. It was so many, it was adults. It was so many young guys out there, like Bloods, Crips, young girls, and these people were angry. And I said, hip hop is this is what we use to release our anger. But the thing is, they take this and they'll flip it and tell us that if you want that $1 million contract, because they know we poor, we come from nothing, you need money. You want that $1 million contract, you gotta talk about sex, you gotta talk about drugs, you gotta talk about shooting people, you gotta talk about this, and that. And that's easy for us because that's where we come from. So now it makes it, when we do that, then they put on front paper, oh, hip hop's at it again. This person coming from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, glorifying crime. And meanwhile, they pushed me to do that. because they know I need that money.
A contract.
But you know, Perion can speak to. Were you gonna say something?
No, I say by contracts. The way you say the way they make you do that. You know, they sign you to a contract to produce this kind of image of yourself.
I was gonna say I'm an educator by profession, and Perion was there this year when we had what we call a global conversation at the college I work at.
Okay.
And it was all about hip hop, but it was about how hip hop is being used. Like for example, Nas just got a chair at I think Harvard. Nas, of course, you know at UCLA they've been teaching classes on Tupac, his lyrics and his mannerisms and all of what he was about, his aesthetic. But what we did was we brought in a sister, Martha Diaz, from the Schomburg Center and NYU. And she did an hour-long presentation that had faculty like banging down the doors, because she talked about all the conferences, all the schools that are offering scholarships for people to do hip-hop, be it poetry, be it learning how to record music, to make music on college campuses, getting full scholarships. All of the worldwide conferences and conventions that they have about the culture. So I just wanted to say that because it's a teaching tool. And it's like hip-hop as a culture could be used for whatever. It could be used to empower, or it could be used for negative forces. And what we try to encourage it as an empowering tool, both through education and through the streets of Bed-Stuy when we're out in the streets. You know, it's all about empowerment.
Absolutely, and even just in the fact that you guys are here right now on the show, redressing that balance and, you know, breaking down the stereotypes that, you know, the one generic thing about all black boys is that it's a negative thing, is positive, you know, and you have voices, and it's not just that you have an opinion, you're actually taking action as well, you know, and you're participating in organizations such as the, you know, the Universal Hip Hop Parade, and, you know, and making that change and being that change that you want to see. And I think that's really, really positive, and I love that, and I commend you for that, and I really, you know, I'm so positive about the future in this sense, because, you know, we're hearing a different story, and I think, you know, it is about us telling our own stories, and as you said, it's told through hip hop, but also the conversation is now becoming a wider conversation, and, you know, you're putting your foot down and you're saying we're not going to stand for this. And what really interests me as well is the whole idea of the entrepreneurial element of hip hop, because you know, when you think about it, and I don't know what the numbers are, excuse me, but, you know, serious money is being made in all different areas of hip hop, and you know, whether you're creaming off the top or you're, you know, selling on 125th Street, whatever it might be, there's a lot of, you know, economics behind it.
Yes.
So now, you know, with the Universal Hip Hop Parade, you also have, you know, you're going down, you know, you're processing through Bed-Stuy, but you're also incorporating the, you know, the institutions, black institutions. How important is that to you in terms of bringing that?
Well, over the years, it is, in a lot of ways, the most important part. Our traditional route, and our route may be slightly different this year, but our traditional route had us working with Devon King Park, with Our Times Press, with the PRG, which is a youth-based organization located near our headquarters that goes around and cleans up the neighborhood. There's the Bed-Stuy Volunteer Ambulance Corps along the route on Marcus Garvey Boulevard, the Boxing Club, the Bed-Stuy Boxing Club. There's Brown Sugar, there's the History of Art, there's Brooklyn Swirl, there's the Restoration Plaza, there's the Gospel Den, there's the Slave Theater that we're still trying to save. All of the institutions I named are either black-owned businesses or black-controlled institutions. And although we're universal, and we once had a huge contingent of Palestinians. One year we had a huge contingent that came from Washington Heights of Dominicans, who might not necessarily identify under the banner of black or African, but they were welcome. And everyone is welcome, but we definitely take pride in the legacy of Garvey, because although all types of people are oppressed, there are some unique particularities to black folks globally as far as underdevelopment and lack of power in various places across the globe. And Garvey recognized that, and we still recognize that. And so we're not ashamed to focus on black, but we're not black supremacists, meaning that just because we focus on ourselves at times, because everyone here is black, but we are human.
Yeah.
And so we care about the human race, but we look at it from the black eyes that God gave us.
Of course. I was just gonna say, cause like I write songs and poetry and stuff. So I was gonna say, even like me, when I write my stuff, I write it where not to sound racist, but like to make it sound like it is what it is. Like, you know, I'm black, and you know what I see, the negatives is done. Everything that happens in this country, when it happens bad, black people always get the bad end of the deal. So it's like, I'm not racist, but reality is, you know, black people don't have no one, you know, as far as, I'm gonna speak from a young person's perspective, we don't have no one like really speaking for me and my age generation, and the ones up under me, the little kids coming up who can just go to the corner store and pick up a gun because he ain't got no mother or father. The politics is good, it's set in place. That's why I said the older generation, they're there to make sure the system don't take advantage of us. But then we need the street, you know, organization, and we don't have that. And that's where the hip hop thing's supposed to come in, and they're supposed to be, you know, to show like, you know, you do this, 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 this. We got the older people there to guide us. But, you know, for me speaking, a lot of the young guys don't and young girls don't have that. So now we turn to anything, anything that we could get our hands to that we think will help us, we'll turn to. But I think the UHHP is there to bond that wedge between the older and the young, and then to also show that it's a possibility to use that power that you're afraid to use to bring a change in whatever neighborhood you live in.
Absolutely, and you know, and what you just said right there, when you said, you know, where are these people? You are the people, you know, and that's what's beautiful about it. And you know, and when you talk about, you know, keeping that connectivity, it's beautiful because, you know, you're bringing this Marcus Garvey and connecting it back. So for young people, especially if they've never heard of him, it's like, you know, they're hearing about it and experiencing it in, you know, the framework of what they understand, hip hop, right? And just the next clip before we wrap up that I want to show you, again, legends. Public Enemy, Chuck D of Public Enemy, I had the real pleasure of spending time with last year, actually the performance at Wingate Park in Brooklyn. And we were invited down to come and film the show, and then we were invited to Strong Island, Long Island, where he lives, and you know, and spend some time. And you know, 25 years of Public Enemy, and we got to, you know, we were there.
Fight the power.
Fight the power, and you know, just props to them. You know, now inducted into the, you know, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you know, and that is again part of our legacy. So just that last piece, if we could show that now. 25 years of Chuck D and Public Enemy.
Wow. Fight the power.
Our word got around on Yo Bum Rush the Show, our first album, that we had something that was different. Our interview was different. Our sound was different. Our approach to rhyming and hip hop was different. We were recording artists, being able to put out a blanketed message to everybody in the masses, assuming a position. We've been to 82 countries over 25 years, and traveling the world and the earth always makes it enjoyable. That has really been the key to Public Enemy's longevity, using the whole PE, planet Earth. When rap music came out, it was a black male voice that says, yeah, I'm thinking just like you thinking, but we're saying it. That was equivalent to what the white males were going through with heavy metal in the 70s.
Never had so many bitches by so few. Call and say, y'all, so what you wanna do? What you wanna do?
You got that one over there with De La Soul. That's me. Flavor's on there somewhere too. Oh, okay. We as Public Enemy have always said that we wanted people to respect black folk. It's one race, the human race, and we have always banged on the door that says treat everybody equal and let our people in. Just like you're sitting at the table, we need to sit at the table too. I mean, forget what I say. Truth is truth, no matter what I think. So how do you keep a 25-year-old rap group having somebody look up there? I'm doing my thing. You looking at flavor. It's like, what the hell? You know, Griff, the S1's in motion. Lloyd's doing his thing. And now with the components of the band, there's a lot of things going on at once in sync. For somebody seeing us for the first time, they're like, that's what you want. My new song, I Shall Not Be Moved. You know, never bitter but better, backed by the fact. All I got is my word. The new curse word is black. Because people feel it's easy to say the N-word, but it's very hard to say black. So it's almost turned into a curse word. But hip-hop has lost control of its own definition. So we try to redefine the original definition. And the build, really, is like you're not going to be rewarded for building. You just got to build and then be rewarded to ride on the road that you build.
We are Public Enemy.
All I can say is big up to the Public Enemy. But you know, exactly, and you know, brothers, you're riding on the road that they built. So this hour went so quickly. I would love to have you on again. So in the last couple of minutes, like, tell me something. Anything.
All right. Well, like I said, you know, my name is Gershwin, from Brooklyn. You know, the Universal Hip Hop Parade for Social Justice. You know, get aware. You know, look out for us. That's right. We're coming through.
All right.
All right. Yeah, that's what's up.
I just want to tell everybody that, you know, my name is Perry. A lot of people know me as they relate me with Tupac, but you know, I'm not Tupac. I'm my own man. But I just want to say, like, I see myself sometime in the future, like it's gonna bring, you know, something's gonna be different. Before I die, something's gonna be different. Whether it's with this hip hop culture or maybe something else had to get started. But I'm gonna bring change, and you know, this not gonna be the last time I'm on TV talking about, you know, representing for black people and whoever. But this is not gonna be my last. But I'm gonna